Hi all, it is 10:05, so we'll go ahead and get started. I welcome all to our breakout session. I would like to introduce Julie Chabdi, who is a health and wellbeing program manager at University of Southern California. She is formerly a program manager at UC Riverside, and she worked on the smoke and tobacco free task force at the UC system. And just a little bit of housekeeping for our breakout session today. Julie will be presenting, and then we will have some time at the end of her presentation for any questions. So we'll have a little Q&A. So if you have any questions for Julie, feel free to put them in the chat box. I will be facilitating and helping out with tech support, and we will just have a time where we can kind of have a facilitated discussion. So I will go ahead and hand it over to Julie.
Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to be part of CYAN's Smoke and Tobacco Free Policy College and University Workshop Series. And thank you, Andrea, for your introduction. I'm Julie Chabdi. I'm currently the Health and Wellbeing Program Manager at USC, University of Southern California in Los Angeles. I started at USC 2 months ago. Prior to my role at USC, I was with the University of California, Riverside for 12 years, where I managed the faculty and staff wellness program and also co-chaired UCR Healthy Campus. I also served as the lead for the UC Riverside's smoke and tobacco-free policy implementation and on the UC system-wide smoke and tobacco-free task force, chairing the task force and working with all 10 UC campuses, 5 medical centers, Office of the President, and ANR. So I'm here today representing my previous work with the UC system. I'll briefly provide some background for the UC smoke and tobacco-free policy before getting into the ways we strengthen compliance. Way back in 2012, former UC President Mark Yudof announced that the University of California, a national leader in healthcare and environmental practices, will be smoke-free by January 2014. This provided us with 2 years to prepare our faculty, staff, students, visitors, and patients for the transition. The mandate specified that all UC property will be smoke-free, which is defined as no smoking, no use of smokeless tobacco, and no use of unregulated nicotine devices, such as e-cigs, in all outdoor and indoor property, basically all UC property, whether owned or leased. The policy also prohibited advertising and sales of tobacco products, and enforcement was primarily through education, emphasizing cessation. All chancellors at each of our campuses and the CEOs of the medical centers were charged with forming a committee to develop, implement, and sustain the smoke and tobacco-free policy. Campuses identified leads, formed committees and subcommittees around areas such as communications, policy development, education and training, cessation, the environment, and student support. Faculty, staff, and students were included in the entire process, and campuses identified reps to serve on the larger UC system-wide task force, which was under the sponsorship of UC Risk Services. The smoke and tobacco-free policy is one of many ways that the University of California supports health, well-being, and safety of our students, staff, faculty, patients, and visitors. The policy prohibits the use of cigarettes, e-cigs, cigars, and all the things you see on the screen there in all of our properties, as well as the sales and advertisement of tobacco products. Each individual campus developed their own policies and procedures based on key elements of the larger system-wide policy. So now we'll get into compliance. What we emphasize at the UC system is that compliance is everyone's business, and we emphasize the concept of shared responsibility. So it wasn't the responsibility of the Smoke and Tobacco Free Committee, it wasn't the responsibility of the UCPD, it was really asking everyone to help enforce the policy. We asked the campus community to respectfully inform others about the policy and ask violators to extinguish their cigarettes, e-cigs, or discontinue their tobacco use, and communicate to visitors or event attendees who may be unaware of the policy. Each campus had a referral system for violators that typically looked like this. Violations by faculty member was often referred to the academic senate or to that faculty member's chair or dean. Staff member violations were referred to their supervisor or their department heads, and volunteers were also referred to their supervisors or departments. Students were referred to student conduct and academic integrity, visitors to UCPD, and then vendors and contractors were referred to the home departments, whether it be through contracts and purchasing, physical plant, or architects and engineers. So over the years, our UC system-wide smoke and tobacco-free task force met monthly. Now they are meeting quarterly to discuss challenges, particularly with compliance. We have had a very creative group of faculty, staff, and students that have tried so many ways to promote policy compliance and enforcement in a non-punitive, supportive, and respectful way. I will highlight a few of the strategies we have used. Compliance strategies include bringing awareness to the policy, educating the campus community about the policy and why it exists, promoting shared responsibility, and creating healthy culture change. We did this through policy promotions and integration, through developing materials and resources that can be used system-wide and tailored for each campus and medical center, various engagement activities, and through tracking and measurement. And I will go through each of them in more details. So the first one is around policy promotions and integration. And what we did was we identified ways that the policy could integrate, or ways that different departments on our campus could integrate the policy language and promote the policy into existing communication channels. So rather than asking various departments to promote the policy separately, we looked at what's already existing in terms of communication channels and where can policy language be included. So this required a lot of key stakeholder support and collaboration. We worked with different departments on campus to provide them with the policy language, with materials such as slides that could be incorporated into existing trainings, various verbiage that can be added to documents and websites. And this was a way to get everyone involved in promoting the policy in their respective areas, and also a way to institutionalize the policy into already existing structures, practices, and promotions, thereby creating a healthy culture change through our policy. I know it's hard to read, so I'm going to highlight a few things that we have on this policy integration promotion list. Here are some examples. Having an annual communication, or at least an annual, if not more, communication from leadership. Usually our policy owner or the chancellor would send out, ideally on the anniversary of the policy, a communication reminding the community about the smoke and tobacco-free policy. We worked a lot with human resources to integrate the policy language into existing HR channels. Some campuses were successful at getting the policy mentioned in individual job descriptions. Other campuses had some content about the policy on their jobs webpage. We at Riverside were able to incorporate a statement in offer letters so that all new hires were aware when an offer was made for them to come on board on our campus. We also added it to employment applications. And then our talent and acquisition recruitment team partnered with us to promote the policy at job fairs, when screening applicants, mentioning it during phone interviews, email screenings. And then in our HR lobby, we used to have pre-COVID computer kiosks for employees to come in to look for jobs, and we would put it on our screensaver. So there were so many different ways that we can make sure that the policy was visible. And you'll see some of the clearing the air graphics there on the slide, which is UC Riverside's. We also worked closely with training and education to include policy language in new staff orientation, staff handbooks, and managers and supervisor trainings. Here's some examples for students, faculty, as well as contracts and agreements. So with students being a huge population on our campuses, many of our campuses included language in admission materials, whether it be websites when prospective students are looking at the school, or in orientation. So freshman orientation, graduate orientations, as well as transfer orientations. We included policy language in guidebooks, in handbooks, in our student code of conduct, and then also work closely with our partners such as student health promotion and education, to make sure that we had the policy mentioned on their website. Several of our campuses also included it in the campus tour scripts. I know we did that at Riverside. So when campus tour leaders are walking around campus, showing high school students or prospective members of our campus community, it's mentioned that we are a smoking tobacco-free campus. So that was a great win. We also provided language to different contracts and agreements on our campuses, whether it be for vendors coming on campus to do construction work, housing agreements, as well as event conference center agreements. And then finally, working with faculty, being present at new faculty orientation to mention the policy, having language in materials that go out to faculty, and then also making sure that it's included in the International Scholars Office information. Here's other places to consider, and I won't go through it all, but I'll just highlight a few. Our system-wide task force brainstormed so many channels for integration, which became a way to sustain our work to this very day. Several campuses had athletic event tickets where they had the policy printed on the back of the ticket, and some campuses were able to even announce at some of their games and promote the tobacco-free policy. We included announcements in our town halls, in student newspapers. So a lot of campuses had students write stories about the policy as a way to promote it. We also worked very closely with our visitor and information center so that the policy language is included on the campus maps. It's mentioned at our parking kiosks, and then also in parking garage tickets for campuses that have parking garages. So just so many ways that you can brainstorm where you can incorporate the policy so that it is part of your existing communication channels. So now I'll talk about our second area of compliance, which is materials that we develop to strengthen our policy. And these materials were created to be used system-wide, and campuses could customize them to use for their own campus. And a lot of these materials are on our system-wide smoke tobacco-free task force, I believe. So the first one is the AIR training, and that stands for approach, inform, and refer. So approach a violator, inform them of the policy politely and respectfully, and refer them to cessation resources. So we worked with our training department to create an online training, as well as a basic simple PowerPoint training that campuses can use. And it was just a way to train the campus community on what to do to help enforce the policy. We developed videos and scripts with different scenarios on how to approach violators, how managers can have a conversation with repeat violators, and how to approach e-cig users. We developed scripts and talking points to support our campus community so that they are equipped with the tools on what to say. And then we also developed some talking points for managers and supervisors just to ensure consistent and appropriate messaging. We created fact sheets around the policies that could be distributed at various events. And then we also promoted our cessation support resources. This varied at each campus, but all of us promoted the 1-800-NO-BUTS, which is operated by UC San Diego. We also promoted resources through our health plans, The UC system provided prescription as well as over-the-counter medications for free with a physician's order. And then we also provided various cessation programs through Kaiser, Anthem, and HealthNet. In addition, we all held annual tobacco waste cleanups, and we developed consistent protocols and forms thanks to CYAN for providing and partnering with us. And so we all held at least annual, if not twice a year, cleanups on our campuses to provide and promote visibility for the policy, as well as to track the impact of our policy. So a lot of these materials and resources, as well as the videos, are on our system-wide task force website. Now, some engagement activities. I wanted to highlight a fun scavenger hunt that we did at UC Riverside. And this is the Clearing the Air scavenger hunt, which was a wellness challenge designed to increase physical activity. So we wanted our faculty, staff, and students to get out of their offices, get out of the classrooms, and get to know their campus, and also show support for the policy and increase awareness for the smoke and tobacco-free policy. So participants were challenged to go all over campus and look for our various signs. And you'll see on the slide there, we had several signs that mention UC is tobacco-free. We also had various A-frames with the Clearing the Air logo all over campus. And participants would go around campus with a map that we provided, and they would locate the signs and take selfies of themselves with the signs. It was a great way for us to take inventory of what signs were visible, what signs might be missing, what signs might be broken. And as participants went out, they would see violators hanging out at various hotspots, and they had the opportunity to say, hey, we are smoking tobacco free, and really just create some awareness around the policy. We had a total of 86 participants in the scavenger hunt, and it was open to faculty, staff, and students. We provided rewards such as what you see on the screen: water bottles, t-shirts, lunch bags, and coffee mugs. And it was just a great win-win for the participants and for our team. And here are some testimonials from the scavenger hunt, as well as a sample collage that was submitted. And it was just a really fun way to engage our campus community, promote the policy, and really encourage physical activity. What we found at UC Riverside was that our campus community loves scavenger hunts. And so we used the same concept and developed other scavenger hunts where we had our campus community go find all the vending machines and look for healthy snacks. And then we also did another scavenger hunt where teams went to different parts of campus and took photos of different health-related spots on campus. Great way to also increase social connection. A few other engagement activities included policy ambassadors. Many of our campuses trained and used this model where students were hired or volunteered to act as policy ambassadors to promote, provide education and enforcement and compliance and outreach. Many of our students did educational seminars. They canvassed the campus and talked to violators, promoted cessation resources, and really engaged various student organizations to get behind the policy. You'll see in the picture here, I believe that's UC San Diego's Tobacco Waste Cleanup Day, where they picked up thousands and thousands of cigarette litter. We all usually held our campus cleanups during Earth Day in April or in November during Great American Smokeout. One really cool thing at UCR was we brought in a tree made of cigarette butts. So I know it's hard to see in the picture, but that tree branch is made of thousands and thousands of cigarette butts created by an artist in Los Angeles. And we had the tree out on display in the center of campus for about a week. We had our ambassadors work in various shifts, tabling to promote the policy, and also used it as a way to spark conversation with our campus community on the negative impacts of tobacco use and the environmental impacts of tobacco use. And it was also a great photo opportunity. Our last area of compliance strengthening is through a system-wide dashboard that we implemented for tracking and measurement. And this was borrowed from the University of Texas system. So what we did was we created a dashboard and we tracked and measured how each UC campus was doing in various areas of policy, promotions, prevention, cessation, and enforcement and compliance. And we did this for 2 years, and between the 2 years, we measured whether or not the campuses were making some progress, which is highlighted in the gray boxes on your screen. So we looked at policy. Obviously, we're all 100% smoke tobacco-free policy. At the time, there were some campuses that were incorporating marijuana specifically, mentioning that in their policy. So we wanted to track who was doing that and who was planning on doing that. One of our campuses, UC San Diego, had a very stronger policy, which is 100% tobacco-free at work, which means that no tobacco use at work, including their breaks. No one was doing tobacco-free hiring, but we put it on a dashboard just to have it there. And then we also mentioned exemptions. Industry standard is to have exemptions only for research and ceremonial use, and some of our campuses weren't quite there yet. So we measured policy components, and then we measured various promotional techniques, several of what I mentioned earlier in terms of leadership communication, having promotions in job postings, new employee orientations, international student offices, print materials, having flyers and postcards, large campus events and websites. And then the second half of the dashboard, just kind of going through more of it, we looked at what campuses were doing around awareness campaigns, whether or not they provided workshops and peer health educators that incorporated tobacco into their curriculum, what campuses were doing around engaging the international students, and then counseling. If campuses offered group counseling, one-on-one counseling, support groups, promoted resources from the health plans. Some campuses offered free nicotine replacement therapy, whether it be through their gift shops, their student health. So we tracked all of that. And then through policy, enforcement, and compliance, we tracked what campuses were doing around having permanent signage, having temporary signage that could be moved around based on hotspots and violators rotating to different places on campus and moving away from enforcers. We also tracked campuses that developed any kind of mapping tools. UC Davis has this really cool app where the campus community can actually report where they see violators, and then you see a heat map of where the hotspots are. Other campuses created an online reporting tool so the campus community can submit violations, and then the team would go out there and actually approach and enforce in the particular areas that were being reported. UC Irvine did a fabulous job where their own task force members would go out and really just enforce themselves. And then we also track campuses that use CYAN's online violators training. So for example, if students or faculty and staff were caught violating and they were given warnings, it's usually students, student judicial would then ask the violator to take an online training tool as a way to excuse themselves from the violation. So we had some campuses set up that process. And then finally, we tracked campuses that engaged security guards or CSOs to do some patrols, and then campuses that looked at any other type of warnings. So my last slide, just to wrap up, as of today, I know the Smoke and Tobacco Free Task Force system-wide is continuing to meet, which is very exciting, 9 years after our policy implementation. And this is a suggested best practice from the American College Health Association to continue to monitor policy implementation and sustainability. Each campus takes turn helping to coordinate, facilitate, and take notes to keep the momentum going. So at UC, we continue to work on ways to maintain compliance, especially as we plan to reopen our campuses after this long pandemic. Conversations with campuses reopening and COVID could change the way we move forward with signage, promoting the importance of a smoke and tobacco-free campus in the context of COVID, and providing cessation support to those who need it. The photo you see here shows how important our work was and still is at the UC. We had the opportunity to meet several times with now former President Janet Napolitano, who was really instrumental in providing support and leadership to ensure the success of the policy, as well as maintaining the policy through efforts and advocacy. It is our hope that as campuses reopen, we will find unique and innovative ways to ensure the policy is still an important part of UC and part of the healthy campus work throughout the UC system. Thank you all for having me today, and I am just so honored to have had the opportunity to work and lead the smoke and tobacco-free efforts throughout the UC system, and I'm so thrilled to see the work continue. And as I transition to my new role at USC, I'm looking forward to partnering with the campuses and the key stakeholders at USC to see what we can do to strengthen our policy at USC. So with that, I will conclude and open it up for any questions. Andrea, if you can help me with that, I can stop sharing my screen if you like, because I could see everyone.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Julie. Very informative. So I will open it up to all participants in the breakout. If you would like to unmute yourself, you can go ahead and ask your question directly for Julie, or you can utilize the chat box and I'll monitor that as well.
Any questions for me on anything I mentioned, or is there anything anyone wants to share? Maybe things that you've done at your own campuses, if you are with the campus, or if not, maybe you've heard of other compliance strategies that the UC system may not have thought of that you found successful or unique and creative? Thank you, Suzanne. Suzanne is our Health and Wellbeing Project Coordinator at USC. So thank you for being on. Anyone?
So I got a question about your slides. Yes, we will share the slides along with Julie's, a recording of Julie's presentation if you'd like to refer to it after today's workshop.
That was a really great presentation. Thank you so much. I'm an intern, a public health intern at Cuesta College, and they just recently went, within the past 2 years, went smoke-free. And so part of what my group and I are working on is different. I love the scavenger hunt idea. We're looking for ways to engage our student population, and this was so informative and so helpful. Like, I really enjoyed your presentation.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, the scavenger hunt was a huge hit. You know, it got staff and faculty out of their offices during their lunch. A lot of staff and faculty did the scavenger hunt together. So it was a way to increase the social connection, and then students loved it. You know, especially the selfie component. It was at the time when, this is probably, I don't know, 8 years ago that we did the scavenger hunt. So people were so into like, let's take selfies everywhere all over campus. And then they put it into a collage, and then we purchased a lot of swag. We were fortunate enough at the start of the policy implementation to have a little budget. So we got t-shirts and water bottles and stickers, and students loved it.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'm gonna have to report back to my faculty bosses and tell them about that for an idea for, to engage the students on campus. Yeah. When we get to go back to campus.
Right. We also found that a lot of the signage that we put up, the first year, after a while, our signage got moved around a lot. And some were permanent. We had sign on light posts and buildings, but the A-frames would get moved around. Some of our A-frame inserts got burned, got trashed. And our wind stands would get shoved into bushes. And so we started losing inventory of our signs. We even found one of our signs were stolen and found at a student's home. And so we thought this was a way to have the campus community help us find our signs and move the signs where they should be, because myself and my interns could not do it, could not keep up. Our transportation team, we paid some of these students to make sure our signs were placed where they were supposed to be placed, but after year after year after year, it just got really hard to keep track of.
Wow, that's amazing. And those are good things to know too.
Yeah, and not just my campus. I know, I want to say it was UC Santa Cruz. They had to chain their signs down because it was getting like taken off campus. I know a lot of signs for other campuses were tampered with.
Wow. Yeah. All right.
And I didn't show my last slide. I thought the last slide was the last slide, but there was one more slide. The website for our UC Smoke and Tobacco Free work and some of the videos I mentioned earlier, it's a really long URL. If you just Google University of California Smoke and Tobacco Free, the website should come up. And then for Riverside, you can just go to wellness.ucr.edu. And then at the very bottom, I believe, unless they've changed the website, there should be a little icon for the tobacco-free section of our website. Any other questions?
I have a question in the chat box. Do you think it is possible for the student union on campus alone to implement tobacco-free policies to the extent that you described? Or would it be best to collaborate with another organization that fights tobacco usage?
For the UC system, the students were huge advocates, but we also included faculty and staff so that it was the entire campus community that was involved in advocating in policy development, maintenance, really just engaging the whole campus community. And CYAM was a huge partner for us. Kim and her team, they provided technical assistance, they helped provide trainings, resource support. So definitely engage with CYAM. Outside organizations, we did, and I can't speak for all the campuses because I don't know, but for my particular campus at UC Riverside, we did engage with American Cancer Society, American Lung Association, just to have their perspective. And then we also got involved with our local Riverside County Tobacco Control Group, which was super helpful to have them on the committee because they would give us guidance, expertise, and then we were also able to go to their meetings to present what we were doing and really just work together because they serve the entire city, which our campus community is part of that city. So I know that answers your question, but that's just kind of a preview of what we did.
Yes, thank you, Julie. And then another question, has UCR faced any new challenges getting compliance with this 100% smoke-free policy with the surge of e-cigarettes, disposable products, and the legalization of marijuana in recent years?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's just always issues with compliance. E-cigs definitely, and that's hard to, that's a hard one. We had to do a lot of education around the negative impacts of e-cigs, and then also letting our campus community know that e-cigs were part of the policy, because a lot of people think, oh, it's just smoking and vaping is not smoking. So there was a lot of education we had to do around e-cigs. Marijuana, we incorporated marijuana into our policy. So it specifically says marijuana. And I know that's also a problem as well. I mean, we just address it's just smoking in general. It doesn't matter what you're smoking. It's prohibited, but there's challenges, absolutely. I see a comment here. As a UCR 2020 graduate, I can confirm campus has had lots of signs reminding students we were a smoke-free campus. Thank you for mentioning that. I know 2020, all of us were remote, so I don't know what happened to the signs, if they're going to still be there when you all return back to campus, but we did a pretty good job from 2012 through at least the start of the pandemic when I was still at Riverside, to maintain those signs. The signs are everywhere and it really helps. Yeah, pre-COVID. Exactly. Thank you for letting us know, Emily, that it's still there. Our signs are still there. Anything else? Anyone have other ideas or thoughts, or maybe things that we didn't think about that I could take back to the UC task force or use in future USC work?
So I'm curious, did your implementation or compliance have any focus on transfer students? As you know, with the community college system, it's not 100% smoke and tobacco free across the board. And so some folks might be coming from places with designated area where designated areas are allowed, or maybe within 20 feet. So I would anticipate that maybe there's some sort of struggle for some transfer students who are going to 100% smoke and tobacco free in the UC system. Was there any kind of focus or challenges for with transfer students coming in with compliance?
And speaking on Riverside, not that I know of. I don't think we really knew who the transfer students were. We did have information in transfer student orientations, but I'm not aware of any feedback from them saying that they're coming from a campus that wasn't tobacco free and now they're not happy with our campus being tobacco free. So no, not that I know of. Yeah. Designate smoking areas. We did get a lot of questions just from just anyone in general about why we got rid of our designate smoking areas, because we did have designate smoking areas pre-policy and we removed them all, and we just let our campus community know that, you know, it creates a perception that smoking is allowed, that the air still, you know, it still creates that secondhand smoke and trash.
Thank you, Julie. Any other questions? We have 3 minutes before the breakout session ends, then we go into break. So we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions.
Does anyone else work at a campus? And what are some of your challenges, if you have any, at your campuses? How has student advocacy helped with compliance for these policies? Andres, I'm not sure. I know our students at Riverside, at least the ones that were on my team, were really involved with advocating for policy promotion and compliance. We had, gosh, there was one quarter where we had like 60 ambassadors, and they wore t-shirts and they went out there to promote the policy, engaging their own peers about the policy. So I know students have a huge voice on campus communities, and we did a lot of presentations, a lot of outreach. So I think it's important to engage students and finding students that are part of public policy, public health. We had students from pre-med, pre-health, environmental sciences. Just really finding strong student leaders is really important for maintaining policy compliance and promotions in education. So definitely engaging with students.
Yeah, and to add to that, we've heard from a lot of our student leaders that we work with throughout the state that some of their peers would actually prefer, or feel more comfortable when seeking, if they are tobacco users, kind of seeking help from their own peers versus having to go into a health center and speaking to an adult that they might not be familiar with. So I think students play a huge role in helping with compliance and also with supporting current tobacco users in quitting as well.
Absolutely.
So we are Yes, we are at time.
Oh,
No,
wow,
we
that
have
was
5 minutes.
fast.
Let me, let me just double check. Nope, we have 5 more minutes. I don't know why I set an alarm that early. So we have 5 more minutes for any extra questions. My apologies. Yeah, any additional questions or any conversations? It's interesting because I was actually a student at UC Irvine when the policy was implemented in 2014. And I just remember there was a designated area, and then all of a sudden at the time, I just saw all of these signs and didn't really know much about it. I was in my last year of undergrad, so it was just interesting to see. So it's kind of cool to see the progression after I've graduated and kind of see how e-cigarettes have played a role in the policy, because I know at the time when I was a student, it was just this new idea of, is this healthy? Is this not healthy? What are e-cigarettes? What is vaping? So it's really cool to kind of see just how things have changed over the last, I don't even know how many years, just over the years. So it's kind of cool. So my apologies, everyone. We still have time for questions if you have any, or if you'd like to share anything that you've maybe struggled with on your campuses, or any successes that you've had on campus that you'd like to share.
And thank you for that, Andrea. I'm not going to call him out, but there's someone on this call who was instrumental at UC Irvine. Alan.
Yeah, if I can share real quick, I was from UC Irvine, and funny thing is I'm here at USC with Julie now. And so we have a tough task ahead of us to re-implement the program here at USC. Yeah, I think Julie did an amazing job spearheading our task force over the UC system. And, without her help, we wouldn't have been able to make the progress that we did, because she really put in the effort to really get us information, the tools necessary to implement the program. And so, being the hands-on person, I was the staff member going out, talking to students, staff, and faculty. I was the one, sometimes you will face your challenges where you'll have people who, I had one, I think it was the staff or possibly faculty, who actually just flicked the cigarette butt my way, but things like that can happen. But, it's just one of those things where we just need to take a step back and remember why we have this policy. And, it's just for the overall health of our campus communities. And so, just keep on pushing along for those who may be new in implementing the policy. And, we do have this network of folks who, especially with COAN being a valuable resource as well, to help support all of our campuses here in the state of California.
Thank you for that, Alan. Yeah, Irvine did a really good job with their enforcement, just such creative ideas.
Now we have time for one more question. If anything has any lingering thoughts or ideas, maybe we will be sharing the slides, which include Julie's contact information if you want to connect with her further after the presentation.
I'm curious what campuses will be like when we reopen in terms of like tobacco use and e-cig use, especially with, after COVID. It'd be interesting to see what happens. Well, I appreciate you all joining, and hopefully you all learned a few things that you can take back to your campuses or your organizations. If you support other organizations, if you're with a campus, feel free to use our materials that you can find on our websites. The system-wide website links to each UC campus. You can actually reach out to each of the UC campuses. We have our roster on the website, and you can reach out specifically to individuals at the various UC campuses if you want to learn more or see more information that they have. Each campus did an amazing job, and it's just so nice to have a network of colleagues, faculty, students to really work with. So I encourage all of you to form a committee if you already don't have one, engage the right players, experts, key stakeholders, because it really takes a team. It's not a job for one person. It really takes a team to make this happen. And it's something that we have to just continue to keep alive and keep that momentum going.
Thanks, Julie. The presentation was very informative, and I had some direct messages in the chat saying that they really enjoyed the presentation as well. So just wanted to give you a round of applause and thank you again for all of this information. For everyone, you will have a 5-minute break and then we will go into the next round of breakouts. You don't have to reconvene in the general session room. You can go ahead and click on the unique link for whichever breakout you'd like to attend at 10:55. So enjoy your break and we will see you for the next round of breakouts. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.